What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Strangers on a Train, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The story of Strangers on a Train is as follows. Tennis star Guy Haines half-jokingly muses about killing his wife with a stranger he meets on a train. Unhinged playboy Bruno Anthony, who'd prefer his father to be deceased. In theory, each could murder the other's victim. Crisscross, no motive, no clues, no problem. Except Bruno takes the idea seriously with the deadly consequences. So, yes, that is the overall story of Strangers on the Train. Let's briefly try and go over it and make this review as short and sweet as possible. Overall, I enjoyed Strangers on the Train. I don't think this movie is as good as Rope, which I think is a more superior movie. But for what it is, I thought Strangers on the Train was a very good psychological thriller with a lot of film noir influence. Like, from a visual standpoint, this is a beautiful looking movie. Hitchcock's uses of tracking shots and shadows really gives this movie a very dark and foreboding sense. So I got no complaints with that. And this, again, it's Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock was known of being a visual artist when it comes to moving his camera, and when it comes to telling his cinematographers what to do in all his movies. Strangers on the Train is no different. A visually beautiful movie that is really heavily influenced by that German expressionism in a lot of scenes. And a lot of scenes clearly see a lot of German expressionistic film techniques. So yeah, I think Strangers on a Train is a visually striking, beautiful movie. Not only that, this movie is backed by a really good cast as well. You have Farley Granger, who plays the character of Guy Haines, who is a tennis star who hates his current wife after, of course, she basically cheated on him. And he jokingly has a conversation with a guy about wanting to offer, but doesn't really take it seriously. However, the guy he's talking to is played by Robert Walker, whose name is Bruno Anthony in the movie. He takes it very, very seriously, and he actually commits the crime. He kills the man's wife. And I like how Bruno Anthony is kind of portrayed as like an obsessed fan of Guy Haines, knowing everything about this guy's personal life, knowing that all the tabloidness that's going on in his life. It's kind of like real life now, how the tabloids covers everyone's personal life. This was done in the early 50s, where something like that wasn't really too prominent. So when a famous star meets a fan, yeah, you're going to be surprised that they know as much as they do. Not so much today, where with the internet and things like that, where everyone knows about almost everybody, which when you watch Strangers on a Train, you kind of wish that the world was still in the 1950s, when everything was kept mostly private and really rare, where someone's personal life was prevalent to the media. But that works for the context of this movie, because the character of Bruno, he's an obsessed fan, and he's an obsessed fan, and he wants to do good by somebody and he wants to be accepted by the person that he idolizes in a way. So he brutally kills the guy's wife. So, and when he goes in to cash in, hey, listen, on the train, you and I had a conversation about one day killing people that we don't like. I do you, you do me. Now Bruno wants to cash in on that chip. But Guy was like, hey, listen, man, I want nothing to do with this. When we had that conversation, it was strictly for play. Now you committed this act. I can't take it. I ain't going to take another life. And this is when the character of Bruno, starts to really grow to resent Haines. And now he starts to frame Haines for the murder of the wife, since Haines has the motive for it, and Bruno will kind of get off scot-free. So it turns into a game of cat and mouse, and it turns into a game of double crossing. And I thought Farley Granger and Robert Walker, as these two characters, they pretty much hold this movie together. Like, these guys were fantastic in this movie. Their on-screen chemistry was fantastic. The character of Bruno comes across as this charming, yet very manipulative and dangerous psychopath, while the character of Guy Haines is this down-to-earth, likable guy with a crumbling life. His wife wants to get divorced. He's in love with the senator's daughter. So there's a lot of things going on in this man's life, and now he has this psychopath on his tail. Like that, those two, whenever Granger and Walker are on screen, That's the movie's strongest points, and that's where the movie's at its most interesting. When the movie diverges from that, it can be slow in a lot of areas. It can be very plotting in a lot of areas, and the reason why I don't hold this movie in such high regard as Rope is because this is a movie that could have benefited from a much shorter runtime. Instead, this movie runs 20 minutes longer than Rope, which I thought was a mistake because the movie, like, Hitchcock tries to stretch out this plot for a 100-minute runtime, and it clearly shows that he's stretching it out because there are a lot of scenes to me come across as filler, and there are a lot of support, and there are a lot of side characters that really don't really go nowhere, with the exception of this party scene where Bruno has a vision, and where Bruno is, playfully choking out a lady, acting out a murder. Then he has a vision after he sees this character played by Patricia Hitchcock. He has a vision of Miriam, who is Guy's wife, who he killed, and the strangulation goes from being played to being real. That's actually a very intensely beautiful directed scene, and I like it a lot. Like this movie does have a lot of really good scenes with certain side characters, and then there's other side characters who I feel if you would have taken them out or trimmed those scenes down, the movie to me would have had a much better flow. That's just how I feel about it personally. But for the most part, the movie is well directed. It is well acted. I'm not saying that the performances in this movie are bad. Quite the opposite. Every single performance in this movie is good. I just think it could have benefited from a much shorter runtime. All you had to do was maybe cut down 10 minutes, and I think the movie would have had a much better flow, and everything would have been at a much more breakneck pace while still maintaining that suspense. All I'm saying is that this movie should have had the pacing of Rope. If it had the pacing of Rope, I think it would have benefited greatly from it. That's just me personally. And I also think that the third act, can be a little bit over the top. Guy and Bruno have this bare knuckle brawl on a carousel, and you have the carousel operator crawling underneath to try and stop it from spiraling out of control. Then the whole thing goes up in an explosion type of thing, which is very over the top. The stuff on the carousel is fantastic, but it is over the top. The third act can be a little convoluted, and it is stretched out for a long time because Hitchcock shows an entire tennis match taking place while Bruno is trying to plant evidence, indicating Guy for the murder of his wife. So the third act does have a lot of things going on in it, which in some areas it's really well done, and then in other areas it's being stretched out a little too long. That's just me personally. But as an overall movie, I enjoyed Strangers on the Train. I do like it. It is a good watch, and I am going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I don't like it as much as Rope, but that does not mean this is a bad movie, because it ain't. It's a very good and solid psychological thriller. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Strangers on the Train. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like this video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.